All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 3 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. You are attending the Orion Basics Webinar Clinic today. My name is Eric Anderson. I'm the owner and inventor of Orion, and today we are going to talk about the basics of using Orion. Couple logistical points before we get into it today. I know there are still a few people who are trying to log on, so the first couple minutes we're just going to talk about some new developments in Orion before we really get started into the presentations, just as a way to kind of help those who are still logging on. I am going to try to keep today's webinar to about 45 minutes, depending on questions. So hopefully the content of today is intended for new users. We don't have a lot of time to go into some of the more complex issues with Orion, such as virtual matches. But if you are a new user, hopefully you can get a better grasp as to how to use Orion today. That is today's purpose. For our example, we are going to be using a 3x20 air rifle match. A lot of what we will be talking about isn't specific to air rifle. It does correlate to the other disciplines, BB gun and air pistol, but for demonstration purposes today, we will be using a 3-position air rifle as our example match. Today we will be recording this webinar. It will be available online after we usually put it up tomorrow morning. It will be on our YouTube channel, and we'll be sending out links to this webinar as well. I encourage everybody to ask questions as we go along. This presentation really is meant for your benefit, so if you have a question, please speak up and do so. What we have found is it is best if we keep everybody muted, and if you have a question, use the GoToMeeting chat box. You can type in your question there. I'll be able to read it, and once I see it, I'll try to address it. Again, but keep in mind, the only caveat is, because we're limited on time, if your question is very specific or detail-oriented, I may either push your question off until the end or ask that you call a support line later to address your specific needs. Again, first couple of minutes, waiting for a few more people to log on, so I just want to cover some important information about Orion. Even after today, if you have questions on using Orion, there are lots of different places that you can go to get assistance. First of all, we have FAQs on our website, orionscoringsystem.com. Click the support link. The FAQs are searchable. We keep these things updated, so that's usually a good place for you to look if you have a question. You can certainly call our support line, email us. You can write a message on the Target Talk forum. We don't own the Target Talk forum, but we do monitor it. So if you have a question, we'll probably see it and be able to get you an answer there as well. And also, if you like, we have a Facebook page. Oftentimes we make announcements on our Facebook page before we do anywhere else. So it's a good place to keep up to date with what's going on with Orion. The 2.3 team league release is coming out very soon. 2.3 is actually already out. What we've done is we've added tournaments, which is an online grouping of matches. The team league functionality is coming soon, where you actually be able to manage a league within Orion. There have been major scoring algorithm improvements. The two biggest differences is A, we've gotten rid of calibration. B, much better BB gun detection and accuracy. As a reminder, if you are an Orion license holder, you are allowed all updates to the software. So just because a new release comes out doesn't mean you have to wait until the next time you renew your license. As long as you're a valid license holder, you are entitled to all the updates to the software. Another important announcements with the Orion targets. We've moved the printing operation from Germany to the United States. All Orion targets now are printed in the United States. This enabled us to do a couple things. One, we lowered our bulk pricing for targets. Two, all of the 10-meter and 50-foot rifle targets, they've moved from the A4 size to the letter 8.5 by 11-inch size. you're going to notice that with the new targets that are coming out, a lot of the scoring rings are dashed. The reason that they are dashed is because it actually helps us improve the scoring accuracy. We're also coming out with 2 new targets to Orion. One is a 12-bowl BB gun target. It's perforated down the center, which will enable us to break the target in half for scanning purposes. But what the athlete will be firing on is a 12-bowl target. We're also coming out with a basic marksmanship course target. This is what you see in front of us. It is intended for basically brand new rifle shooters. It's basically the air pistol scoring rings with the air rifle aiming bowl. Also of note is we are actually moving away from barcode labels, using barcode labels. Because of that, barcode labels, we're now selling them separately. They're no longer automatically coming with the targets. They are being sold separately. We can do this because, again, we're trying to move away from using barcode labels. Another thing to note, with the 2.3 release of Orion, a couple important things. One, the 3010 scanner is no longer available. We've replaced it with a faster scanner, the DRM162. It is a little bit more expensive. The bundle price is now $13.98, but it's a great scanner, about twice as fast as the 3010. The other thing to note, if you are a BB gun club, the C225 scanner now supports BB gun, whereas it previously did not. And this is our low-end scanner. And as a reminder, we do have we call them the monthly series of virtual matches. Any Orion customer is allowed to participate in them. We have instructions on how to do so on our website, but the basic purpose of the virtual match, of these a monthly series of virtual match, is to allow your athletes, your team, to kind of compare your scores with anybody else who competes in the match. They're fun, they're no cost, and it's just meant as a easy way for you to compare scores. And with that, I will pause just a moment in case there are any questions. Again, I do encourage you to ask questions. This presentation is meant for you, so if you have questions, please speak up. And in order to ask questions, there is the chat box within the GoToMeeting. All right, if there are no questions immediately, let's get started with the content of the webinar today. All right. The very first thing I want to talk about is Orion's shooters database. The shooter database, the primary purpose of the shooter database is to allow you, the club, team, stat officer, to track the athletes that are most commonly shoot at your range. The shooter database I have in front of you has about 12 athletes to it. Again, it's meant for just those athletes who frequent your club the most. To add an athlete to the database, you can just start typing your name at the last row, and you can go through the row and add information as necessary. Some of the fields in the shooter database are customizable. For example, I have a 3-position air rifle type. Again, our example today is 3-position air rifle, so it can be important for me to track whether or not an athlete is a precision air rifle shooter or a sporter air rifle shooter. The way that we can customize the shooter database is we can go to the database properties. Off of Orion's menu bar, click on database, and then database properties. It's called the shooting style, but the database properties box comes up. The very first tab is the shooting styles tab. Here, select the shooting styles that your club participates in. Again, for today's example, I'm just using 3-position air rifle, so I have that already selected. I'm going to skip the memberships tab for a moment and go to the categories fields. These are the fields that you can add to the database to track additional information for your athletes. Again, because 3-position air rifle is my example, I have the 3-position air rifle type selected, but you can see a number of other category fields that you may also use, depending on your club's needs. Going back to the memberships fields, the membership field allows you to track the membership number of certain organizations. Here in the United States, the most common ones are the CMP, USA Shooting, and NRA member, and the National Rifle Association. These are already built in. If you wish, though, you can add a new membership field. For example, some schools may have a school ID that they want to track within the database. You can do that within Orion as well. The purpose of a membership field is, one, you can carry this information forward to any competition. Two, you can use this within competitor numbers. Certainly, if you run CMP Cup matches, you will want to track CMP competitor ID numbers because it is still required for you to use the CMP ID numbers for competitor numbers. Okay. And next thing I want to talk about on the Shooter database is this favorites tab. I mentioned already that the database as a whole is meant to track the athletes that frequent your range the most. A favorite is a subset of those. A favorite are those athletes who, day in and day out, they're the ones who shoot on your range on a daily basis. A favorite is going to do a couple things for you. First, every time that you create a new match, favorites are automatically added to that new match. Second, you can also see the analysis. If we skip over to the analysis tab, we have our favorite members, and the favorites allows us to see the historical record of each athlete. One other thing I want to talk about while I'm on the Shooter database tab is this search field. The search field is available on the Match Competitors and Match Teams tab, but I'll demonstrate it here. If you're looking for a particular athlete or a group of athletes, you can just start typing in a value that you want to search for, and Orion will just list those athletes with that value. In this case, I was trying to type in West Potomac, which is the organization for 5 of my athletes in the Shooter database. Also, I want to demonstrate within the Shooter database, I already mentioned how to add a new athlete. Just go down to the last row. If you wish to remove an athlete, this is the same thing you do with competitors and teams. Select the athlete you wish to remove. You select the athlete by clicking the far left column, right-click, and say Remove Shooter. That's all you have to do. With that, I'm going to pause for a moment to see if there are any questions about the Shooter database before I move on to the next subject. There's a question about an organization who has their own online registration form and whether or not you can kind of import the information from the online registration into the Shooter database. The direct answer is no. You cannot import information directly into the Shooter database. However, what you can do is import information into a match using Excel. And if you can give me a moment, I'll come back to this subject and touch on, in a few moments, I'll touch on how you can import information into a match versus the database, how you import information into a match from Excel. And if there are no other questions about the Shooter database, let me scroll through here. All right, another question about the Shooter database, and if you're hosting a match, whether or not it's a good idea to add all the athletes in a match to the Shooter database ahead of time, or just add them to the match itself. There is no correct answer to this question. We have clubs that do both. It's probably whatever you find the easiest. Me, personally, if I was hosting a match, I would just add that information into the match itself and not add it into the database. But as I said, I do know I have customers who do the opposite, who add everything to the shooter database first and then add them to the match as they build the match. It's no correct answer. It's really just whatever you find easiest. All right, I will move on to the next subject, which is creating a match. To create a match within Orion, there are a couple of different ways. You can go to File, New Match. For today's purpose, we're talking about a local match. You can click on that, or there is a button here for creating a new match as well. I already have a match open, so it's asking me if I'm sure I want to open one. I say yes. When I create a new match, the Match Properties box comes up. This has all the information that you need to customize the match for your specific needs. The very first field to pay attention to is the match name. While, yes, Orion will give you a default name, especially if you're going to put in your results online, I strongly encourage you to give your match a meaningful name. It's going to make it easier for athletes, coaches looking online to find your match, and adds a little bit of class. Under that is a series of tabs. I'm going to go through each of these tabs separately and talk about each one. Under the Basics Rulebook tab, start and end dates. Largely the start and end date is specific for online listings, but yes, you do want to update this information as appropriate. Geography is also largely just for the online listing. It's not going to affect the match itself. Rulebook, you want to make sure that you select the rulebook specific for your competition. Again, for today's purpose, I'm using the default 3-Vision air rifle rules, but inside of Orion, what the rulebook is going to do is A, it's going to determine the different courses of fire you have available. B, it's going to dictate the tie-breaking rules, and it also dictates how some of the information gets displayed online. Underneath rulebook is a optional field for decimal scoring. Decimal scoring is when everything is scored in 10th ring values. USA Shooting adopted it for air rifle and prone events starting last year, and it's also the new international standard. You can do this for everything for Orion. It is optional. On to the next tab over, the course of fire. Again, the rulebook that you select dictates which courses of fire you have available. In this case, I am just going to select the default 3x10. You'll notice PSK versus KPS. That's the order of events. In this case, PSK, prone, standing, kneeling, or sometimes you'll see KPS, kneeling, prone, standing, which is a new format which is being adopted internationally and by USA Shooting. I want to follow up on a question that just came up. If you're creating a match but it's shooting on 2 different days, yes. What you would just do is just set the start and end date appropriately. So I could have the start date as September 30th and the end date as October 4th, and that's all you would have to do. If you're running a match, 2 completely separate matches, like a 3x10 and a 40-shot standing match, you do want to create two separate matches for that, though. All right, going back to the course of fire tab, the shots per bowl, that tells Orion how many. It's part of the goes into the scoring algorithm that tells Orion how many shots to expect on each aiming bowl. In air rifle, the default is 1. If you're running a competition, it should remain 1. But for practice purposes, you can select 2. For air rifle purposes, I wouldn't go any higher than that. Air pistol, for example, certainly the default is 5, and for practice purposes, you can also set it to 10. So this is basically an easy way for you to save money on targets during practice purposes. The number of team members, in this case, the default is 4. This is not how many athletes are limited to each team. Rather, it's, for example, if you have 8 athletes assigned to a team, Orion is going to take, in this case, the top 4 athletes as the team score. The other 4 athletes are listed, but they do not contribute to the team score. Number of team members, you just take the top 4 members of the team for the team score. Dynamic team generation is a slight twist to this. Again, if I have 8 athletes assigned to a team, Orion in this instance would take the top 4 athletes as team number 1 and then create a second team, team number 2, for athletes in the 5th through 8th position. Invert group analysis is largely for BB gun competitions, and to be honest, this functionality is going to be deprecated because we're coming out with a new target, with a new BB gun target. The Result Center. The Result Center is one of Orion's most powerful features. It allows you to put any competition results online. It is part of the Orion scoring system. It is a separate service. It's free. You just have to enable the service for your accounts. Once you have enabled the service, all you have to do, A, have an internet connection, but B, under the Result Center tab, just put a checkbox, list and report scores online. Once you do that, Orion will take care of the rest. It will automatically upload your competition results to the internet as your scoring targets. This way, the athletes, the coaches, the spectators can all see the competition online as it progresses. Tournaments is a new feature within Orion. Again, it's just a group of matches. I was at a Virginia 4-H competition a couple of weeks ago. They used this. In the Virginia 4-H competition, they had, it was like 12 different matches, from air rifle to small bore to silhouette to clay targets. They created a tournament to group everything together to make it easier for the athletes and coaches to find all the competitions. The contact information is all optional, but I do recommend that you type it in. It is optional because if you put anything in here, it will be displayed on the internet. All right. Moving on, under the next tab is the competitor number tab. Orion has lots of different options for giving each athlete a default competitor number. The first option is don't do anything at all. Second option is to use the membership field. If, for example, you're running a CMP Cup match, you would want to select the CMP competitor ID number as the default competitor number in the competition. That is required by the CMP for their upload purposes. Pretty much for any other competition, NRA, USA Shooting, you can just use sequential numbers. That's the default. That's kind of the best practices at this point. So yes, you can use Orion will assign sequential numbers as athletes are added to the match. If, again, let's go back to the example, you're doing a CMP Cup match. The first default is to use the CMP competitor ID numbers. By checking the use sequential competitor numbers as a secondary source, anybody who does not have a CMP ID number, Orion will just assign a sequential number for. And yes, you can also, if you so choose, track separately other membership numbers during the match itself. The next tab over is the sanctioning tab. This is largely specific for the CMP. If you registered your match with the CMP, when and if you do so, they're going to provide you this information, the CMP match ID number and authentication code. This is where you would type in this information if you're running a CMP Cup match. There was a question about separately sanctioned matches such as CMP. Hopefully I just answered that. Again, if you're running a CMP match, A, this is where you would type in the match ID and authentication code, and B, for a CMP Cup match, you should use the CMP competitor ID number as the competitor number inside the match itself. Finally, under match creation, I want to talk about the categories tab. Every rulebook has different categories that you can select. Again, in my example, three-position air rifle, oftentimes we want to separate sporter and precision shooters. By selecting this category field, this is how we can do it. There'll be separate awards for this purpose. Another topic that comes up quite often is how do you create your own categories? Every rulebook, it's named slightly differently, but every rulebook is going to have a couple of fields, one or two fields that you can type in your own values for. Under the 3-position rifle rules, it's organization and skill level. So once I've selected this, I can come down here and type in, I'm not feeling very creative today, I can type in my own category values, and I can assign athletes and teams to these particular values. Once I click on save, it is going to confirm a couple of things. Pay very close attention to the course of fire and the rulebook. Once the match is created, it's not possible to edit these fields, so you want to check and double check that you have correctly assigned the rulebook and courses of fire. Once I save this, a new match is going to be created. Notice, once I've done that, my favorites get added to the new match. And yeah, the favorites get added to the new match. If I wanted to go back and edit some of the properties, there is a Match Properties button. Click on Match Properties. And again, I can go through the different tabs and edit these as necessary. With that, I am going to pause again to see if there are any questions about creating a match. All right, if there are no questions, I will move on. So here I am. I've just created a match. My favorites have been automatically added to the match. In my match properties, I said to use CMP competitor ID numbers. So the competitor number is the CMP ID numbers from the shooter database. 3-position air rifle type, precision or sporter, this too was pulled over from the shooter database. Skill level, I created this category tab. So I can go in and select the different skill levels for each athlete as appropriate. I said I wanted to track interrated membership numbers, so there's a column here for this as well. And we all have additional columns. We'll talk about teams here in a moment, but gender, birthday date, you can do squatting, the organization address, and so on and so forth. Very quickly, I want to talk about creating teams. Creating teams is a 2-step process. The first step, go over to the Teams tab, type in the team name. Again, I'm not feeling very creative, so the team name is just Team Quadruple A. And again, I can select the air rifle type, the skill level, so on and so forth. The next step in creating a team is assigning athletes to that team. I do that on the Match Competitors tab, and underneath the Team column, I can select which team that they are on. Going back to the shooter database for a moment, for any of my athletes who are not a favorite, what I can do is select the athletes from the shooter database. Again, I select the athletes by clicking the far right column, right-click, and I can say Add Shooters to the Match, and I can either add them as an individual shooter or as a team that's already created. Once I've done that, the new shooters are added. I added them as individual shooters, and they're now a member of the match. Notice those athletes didn't have a CMP ID number, so they were just added using sequential numbers. There was a question about the skill level category as to whether or not you can use it as an age category. The answer is yes. You can do ages 10, 11, ages 12 and 13, whatever are specific for your needs. Just be careful that you have to assign the skill level, or if it's an age category, you do have to assign it to each athlete. Right. Next subject I want to talk about before we move on to scoring is barcode labels. I mentioned earlier that we're moving away from barcode labels, but specifically for larger matches, they are still recommended. The way that what a barcode label is, let me bring up my picture of it. What a barcode label is a return size address label it's barcoded and it's encoded with basically the athlete, the position, and the series. The athlete, position, and the series for this particular target. You applied the barcode labels to the target. When the targets are scanned by Orion, Orion reads this and assigns it to the appropriate athlete. Again, for large competitions, barcode labels are still very much a best practice. The way that you create barcode labels from the Match Competitors tab, select the athletes you want to print labels for. Again, far left column, right-click, and say Print Labels. When you do that, this is a 3x10. I have 5 athletes, 15 labels. Obviously, I can't print it for the webinar purposes, but what it will look like once it is printed is a sheet like this. There is a specific type of barcode labels you have to use. We do sell them, and they do come with bundles still. And also, you can also create barcode labels for a team from the Match Teams tab. Again, select the team, right-click, and say Print Labels. All right. And with that, before I go into scoring and verification, I will pause once again to see if there's any questions. I do know there was one question about importing data into Orion. So again, I have my match set up. If I wanted to import data from an Excel file, and what I do, with the match open, go to Match, Import, and I can say Import Participants. And I do apologize, I wasn't expecting this question, so I don't have an example file, but if you have an Excel file with competitor information in it, you can import that data from Excel into Orion. The only thing you have to be careful of is inside of Excel, you do have to use the same column names, last name, first name, middle name, etc., as you do, as you see from Orion. There is a FAQ on our website that can give you more information about importing data from Excel into Orion. I do apologize since I wasn't quite expecting that question. I would have had an Excel file ready to demonstrate this. So once again, are there any questions about competitor and team management before I move on to scoring and verification?
Yes. Could you mention what file type for importing? You didn't say anything.
It is an Excel file type. I believe it's the XLSX, the open Excel file type.
What about a CSV file?
Currently, we export to a CSV, but importing is only through Excel. I believe. I don't think we support. I would have to check. I'm 95% certain. Currently speaking, the only thing that we can import from is an Excel file.
That would be the standard XLS file then.
Yeah. Okay, with that, let's move on. Thank you for the questions. These are good questions. When I talk about scoring today, I'm going to open up an existing matches which has a lot of the examples that I want to use for talking about verification. I will say ahead of time that I've kind of picked a lot of targets from the bottom of the barrel just to give everybody examples of the different types of problems you would see while scoring targets with Orion. Before we move on to verification, let's talk about AutoScore for a moment. AutoScore is Orion's process for scanning targets directly from the scanner and loading them and scoring them into Orion. Unfortunately, I cannot demonstrate that here today just because the scoring process inside of Orion is so computationally expensive, it actually interferes with the webinar software itself, so I can't demonstrate it. But a couple things to note. When you are using AutoScore, when you are scanning targets, A, make sure you orient the targets correctly. Every scanner is a little bit differently, so you want to make sure that you are orienting the targets in the scanner correctly. B, once you're ready to scan, I'm hovering over the AutoScore button, click it, Orion will communicate with the scanner, scan the targets, load them, and score them. In case you didn't miss it, calibration is no longer a thing, so you don't have to worry about calibration with the 2.3 release. Okay. Once we have scanned the targets and Orion scores them, we're going to be left with a screen very much like you see in front of us. Lots of different things here, all meant here for demonstration purposes. First thing to notice is I have two targets that are unassigned. The reason they are unassigned is these targets did not have barcode labels put on them. So we have to manually assign these two targets. Right-click on the target and say Assign To. I happen to know that these targets belong to Eddie Bowers, so I'm going to select his name. It's a kneeling 1 target. I can click on Next to go to the next target, and we have the updated target image. And again, I know ahead of time that it belongs to Eddie Bauer, so I'm keeping his name and making sure it still says Kneeling 2. I click on Finish, and then once I've done that, the two targets appear underneath his name. The next step in the verification process is dealing with all these red highlighted names. When you have a name that's highlighted in red, it means two targets got assigned to the same position and series for a particular athlete. In this case, it's Prone Series 1 for Rachel Anderson. What happened here is the same target got scanned in twice. I don't need the same target scanned in twice, so I'm just going to select the second target that got scanned in and say Remove Targets. Once I do that, that target goes away from Ryan. I can move on to the next set of problems. The next set of problem is everything that's highlighted in yellow. I'm just going to start at the top of the list and work my way down. When you have a target highlighted in yellow, this is the most common thing that you're going to see. It means there's more or less shots than expected on the target itself. First target's highlighted in yellow. I click it. Down here, Orion's going to tell me what the problem is. It was expecting to find 10 shots, but instead I have 11. In this case, the athlete double shot aiming bowl number 4. Because this is a 3x20, the first thing I need to check is, this is Prone Series 2, so I need to check Prone Series 1 to make sure the athlete didn't also skip an aiming bowl. She did not, so there is, by rule, there is a penalty associated. By rule, it's the highest value shot. In this case, it's a 10.4. I'm going to double click it so I can zoom in on the shot itself. By rule, we annul the highest value shot and assign a 2-point penalty. Orion can do this is, first select the shot, right click, and then say mark as extra shot. When I do that, Orion marks it as an extra shot, and I can go back to the Prone Series 1, and we can see it's a 2-point penalty. The penalty in this case is always assigned to the lowest value shot in the first series. Next up, this athlete's standing target. Again, expected 10, but instead I have 9. I'm going to zoom out on this target so I can look at it better. There's a pound key here that I can zoom out with. And when I look at this target, what I can see is on aiming bowl number 7, there was a shot right on the edge. Close enough to the edge that Orion didn't pick it up, but I can go ahead and add it. It's pretty far out to the white, so I'm just going to use my mouse, get kind of close, say add shots, add a real shot. It's a miss. That's all we need to do. On the next target that we have a problem with, expected 10, but we found 8. So again, I'm going to look at this target, figure out what's going on, and judging by the target, it's a new athlete. there are only 8 shots on this target. It appears aiming bowl number 3 and aiming bowl number 5, the athlete didn't hit the target at all. So I need to add misses to this target. We do that with my mouse. Just get close to the center of the aiming bowl, right click, add a shot, missed shot, and I'm going to do that twice for each of the aiming bowls without a shot. That adds 10 shots to the target. I can move on to the next problematic target. So in this one, again, the problem is expected 10 but have 11. First step, figure out what's going on. As I look through the target, there are indeed 11 found shots, but what we have is there's a shot that is a sighter that got marked by the range officer. The range officer and the athlete did the correct thing. Got marked by the range officer, so we know that this shot should not count for the athlete. So I need to remove it from Orion. Select the shot. When I select the shot turns to red. Right-click, and I can say remove the shot. It's now outside of Orion, and we can move on. All right, the next problem. Expecting 10 shots, but have 11. Again, I'm going to look at the target, figure out what's going on. There are indeed 11 shots on this target, but again, because this is a 3x20, I need to look at the opposite target to see if the athlete left an aiming bowl blank. In this case, kneeling 2, which is also highlighted, that's precisely what the athlete did. He left aiming bowl number 5 blank. Again, by rule, because the athlete fired 20 shots, there is no penalty. The athlete is known as an internal crossfire. He gets 2 of these for free before there's a penalty. So all I have to do is tell Orion to ignore this warning message. To clear up the highlighting, I can say right-click, ignore warning message, and I can do this for both targets. That clears up the highlighting. Finally, the next target, expecting 10 but have 9. Again, look at the target, figure out what's going on, and we can see on aiming bowl number 3, if I zoom in on aiming bowl number 3 by clicking the number 3 button, what happened was, this is the old Florida electoral thing, there was a hanging chat. This was enough to prevent Orion from identifying the shot. I'm just going to identify as shots. The easiest way to identify a shot is get close with your mouse to the center of the shot hole and then double click. When I double click, you're basically giving Orion a hint as to, yes, there's a shot here, go out and find it. Once I've done that, Orion identifies the shot, it's scored, and we can move on. The last thing to pay attention to is Bo Duke. You'll notice that his name is highlighted in gray. What gray means is there is more or less targets assigned to the athlete than expected. This really is only relevant at the end of a relay. So if this is the end of the relay, I'm expecting 6 targets, 2 prone, 2 standing, 2 kneeling, assigned to each athlete. But we have here is he's missing his prone 1 target. I don't know why it's missing, but we need to figure out where this target is at. Did the range officer keep it? Did the athlete did not get it turned in? Did it not get scanned? You have to track it down. Track it down, scan it, score it, and then you'll be all set. All right, we are getting close to the end of the time, which is fine because the last thing I wanted to talk about, before I move on, are there any questions about scoring or verification?
Yes, the target size of the gauge itself, is that variable? For example, if we're with a club match shooting, let's say a 22 or 25 caliber or 20 caliber, can that be changed?
All right, thanks for the question. The scoring caliber is determined by the rule book. I'm trying to think. Everything in Orion is either scored using the 4.5 millimeter pellet size for air rifle and BB gun, or if it's a bench rest match, a small bore match, it uses the 22 caliber. But that's fixed by the rule book. It cannot be changed.
What about a new event coming up where they're using larger calibers, trying to use the Orion scoring system? Is there a possibility to have a larger size scoring ring?
Currently speaking, no.
Thank you.
And if there's no question, I will move on to the last subject I wanted to cover, which is the results. Once scoring is complete, Orion has the full result system built in. Under ranked results, I have the different, by default, the different results available. Individual team, select that, click on Update Results. Orion automatically calculates it. For this particular match, I had decimal scoring turned on, which is why everything is scored in decimal. If I click on Include Coach Team Demographics, when I print this information, the coach, the team, the athlete's hometown gets printed on the output sheet. For demonstration purposes, let me show you what that looks like. Different match, but the athlete's name below that is his or her demographic information, including their coach, their home team, the team that they're from, etc. Individual score sheets. This is a great training tool. It also helps the athletes know precisely how their targets are scored. You can print individual score sheets for each relay, everybody on a relay, or for individual athletes. Again, select the athlete's name, click Print Individual Results, sends it to the printer, and what this is going to look like, largely familiar to everybody at this point. You have the printed shot group as far as the detailed information as to how each shot was scored. A couple things about the listing of the scores. The very first shot here, 2 and then a comma, 2.9. 2 is the score of the shot, and then 2.9 is the decimal value of the shots. When we see a value like this, 254-0, 254 is the score. In this case, -0 represents the number of inner tens, or in this case, the athlete didn't have any inner tens. And then finally, we talked about, it just showed you the printed shot group analysis. That is now available inside of Orion. Very easy, just double click on a particular score, and then the shot group form opens up, and you can see inside of Orion the shot group. And if, for example, I look at just prone, I can see the 10-shot series for an athlete or the 20-shot series combined. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the information that I had wanted to cover today. I did go over by a few minutes. It's 3:50 right now, but I am happy to stay on here and answer any questions that you may have available. Hopefully this was informative for you. As before, if you have questions, you can ask them here, or feel free to call us, email us, and we'll make sure that we get the information that you need.
Eric, I have a question for you, and that is, if you're a license holder, I was told by Garrett Quackestein that I should ask about getting a license or something that I could practice on a separate computer. I have 2 licenses actually that I'm in charge of at Rio Salado Sports Center Club. One is a pistol license and one is the bench rest license.
Okay, so a couple things. I do apologize, I'm not specific about the details of your account. With Orion, first thing to note is there's nothing that's called just a bench rest license or just a pistol license. Okay. You can score everything with it's just called the Orion for Clubs license. You can score everything with that. So that's the first thing to note. Second, a license should only be installed on a single machine. It is licensed only for one computer. If you have 2 licenses, you can use 2 different computers. We also have something that's called a non-scoring license that you can use to create matches, add athletes, print results. You can do everything except scoring. And if you're a license holder, we can just give you those licenses. There's no fee for that. You just let us know, and we can send you a non-scoring license.
Okay, could you do that, and how do I go about doing to acquire one?
If you could, I do apologize. I'm not equipped to do that right here. If you could either email us at support@shooterstech.net or call us, and we'll get you set up.
Understood. I will be happy to do that. Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. All right, once again, if somebody does have questions, I am more than willing to stay on the line and answer them for you. If not, I do wish everybody a good afternoon. And as before, an hour after this match, after this presentation, or 2 hours afterward, 2 days, if you have questions, email us, call us, look at our website. We want to make sure that you get the information that you need to successfully use Orion. All right, well, thank you very much. It doesn't look like there are any questions. Again, wish everybody a good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today.